Hello. The name of this game is Murder Mysteries. I'm gonna tell you how this whole vlog came to be. I was talking to someone in my life, and I was saying how much I love, books, and they were like, oh, what do you read? And I was like, I read a little bit of everything, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And they were like, oh, what's your favorite murder mystery? And I was like, huh. It was no thoughts, head empty. It was crickets. And I'm like, that is such a particular niche of books that I actually have never really tried to this day. I think the only actual murder mystery, dedicated murder mystery that I've ever read is The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo that I read in a vlog that I did for Monty's favorite books a couple years ago, and I didn't even like it. So I don't have a favorite murder mystery. And so I decided to fix that with these 3 books. We're going to be testing out 3 dedicated murder mysteries that should be fun. We have The Appeal that says it's 1 murder, 15 suspects. Can you tell the truth? I also think that there's a performance act to this. We have people in a play and a couple of play directors, a sick girl, and an experimental surgery that has something to do with the plot of that book. And then we have The Thursday Murder Club, which I have absolutely no idea what this book is about. 4 unlikely friends meet weekly in a jigsaw room to discuss unsolved crimes. Together they call themselves the Thursday Murder Club. When a local developer is found dead with a mysterious photograph left next to the body, these friends suddenly find themselves in the middle of their first live case. They might be senior citizens, but they are cleverer than the most. As the bodies begin to pile up, can our unorthodox but brilliant gang catch the killer before it's too late? Elderly people solving a murder? 5-star prediction. 5-star prediction for sure. And then the last book we have here is The Word is Murder. Also don't know what this is about. A woman crosses a London street. It's just after 11 a.m. on a bright spring morning, and she is going into the funeral parlor to plan her own service. 6 hours later, the woman is dead, strangled with a crimson curtain cord in her own home. I'm gonna stop right there. A woman going to plan her own funeral and then is killed. Also sounds like a 5-star prediction. This should be fun. Let's hope that it's fun. There's just something about mysteries that feel like they're so prolonged that they go by slow. And so I almost equate them with boring in my head. I can do mystery with something else. Like a thriller that has a mystery to it. Or a fantasy that has a mystery to it. There's just something about the idea of a book only being a mystery that feels kind of boring, unless it's satirical, the Finley Donovan is killing it kind of book, or something along those natures. But yeah, I was dedicated to finding murder mysteries that are very popular and beloved and starting there. So here's to hoping that we have a very successful reading experience in this vlog. I think that this is the most confusing, not confusing, but misleading synopsis for a book. I'm 200 pages in, halfway through. I have so many questions. First of all, I think the most prominent question is, why is no one dead yet? Why has no one died in 200 pages of a murder mystery? I'm not sure what's happening. What are we all here for? Why were we summoned here today? If we're what? The format in which the story is told is creating contention for me as a reader, because this book is told entirely in email correspondence between different characters. So we never get a real break from the story. There's a text message thread that's happening between 2 women that I assume are investigators or maybe detectives. I'm not exactly sure, because we have no information about them, and they are talking without context. Clearly they are in the know and in the understanding of a lot of things that the reader doesn't know, and even the characters of the story doesn't know. And so we get a bit of a communication between them, and it's basically just them checking in on making sure they understand what's happening in the email threads. And then we jump right back into just pages and pages of emails, which is a very interesting way to tell a story. Not good interesting, but not bad interesting yet. I don't know. Jury's still out on whether or not I think that this is a great way to tell a story. I'm just in shock of how much you can learn about people and their lives from just reading emails. They're not putting an overload of information into the emails. These are what I assume emails amongst friends and colleagues and acquaintances would be. But still, can you really do an entire murder investigation from just reading email threads? Because that's very interesting. I don't send as many emails as these characters tend to do. I feel like some of this could have been, actually a lot of it could have been in text messages or in face-to-face dialogue, but constantly is nothing but emails. So we have this family that is, they are perceived as well off, and they are socially influential, and they have a theater, and they cast plays that shows a lot of favoritism, and the female matriarch of the family is always the leading lady in every play that they put on. And so to get any roles of like merit is really about who you know and not necessarily like your talent. So they're putting on this show, but it's basically like who you know and the ins and outs of things like that. And so one character that we're following, her name is Izzy, and she seems very like high energy, highly involved, and she rubs a lot of people the wrong way with, I guess, like her perkiness and her obsessive nature. And then we have Samantha, which is a character that we actually don't get any email correspondence from her at all. Like, we never see her type an email, but her and her husband just relocated from volunteering in the medical field in Africa, and now they're at this hospital, and Izzy has kind of like dug her nails into them, and there's that situation. But the true crux of the story is that the granddaughter of this very influential family has come down with a very rare brain tumor, and so they are trying to raise money any way they can to get this experimental drug treatment from America. And as you know, America's like healthcare system is crazy expensive, and so there's just so much like nonstop effort to raise like $350,000 US, I believe. Already, as we do this crowdfunding campaign, money is getting lost. People are being questioned. You are not clear on how much money has actually been raised, how much the treatment actually cost. And there's even been some like allegations against the doctor that is supposed to be treating their granddaughter because she's been accused of fraud. And somehow this doctor that is going to treat this granddaughter has a connection to Samantha, the person that just came from Africa. But we don't get any emails from her, so we really just know that she exists from conversations that other people are having about her in their email thread. It's really hard to like narrow down and truly like grasp and get a hold of the story because it feels flimsy in a lot of ways, and it's forever shifting, and it's just, you don't know how much really, or if anything, is believable because at some point, I'm guessing one of the characters that we're following is gonna die. But the emails are so vast that like we have our central cast of characters, but then there's other random emails that are tossed in that just kind of seem like regular maintenance emails or kind of like promotional emails from certain companies, and you're just like, what does this have to do with what's happening in the story? One of which is email correspondence with a team that was doing some type of like fencing upgrade on their house. And it's just like, why am I like reading about invoices and bills paid or unpaid about a wall? Like, what does that have to do with the story? I don't know. It seems very much everywhere. And I think that the fact that I don't have a dead body yet is making me like unsure of what to put emphasis on, what to really pay attention to. But also it's making me pay attention more because I feel like if we did have a dead body, it would feel so prolonged of like, okay, like, how are we going to investigate a murder or find a murderer from just email correspondences and nothing else? Especially because our detectives, I'm assuming they're detectives, they are not central to the story, and we like see them so briefly, and the conversation that they have don't bring much context or merit to the things that are happening within the book. So needless to say, like this recap was, the book feels everywhere. It feels like it's everywhere, and 50% in, and I'm still waiting on a body to drop. So yeah, that's my update on that. I will come back at the end, and hopefully like I'll be wowed and it'll all make sense, and I'll be like mind blown that I never saw it coming, because right now I don't know what's coming from which way. If something was to sneak up on me right now, it got me. It got me because all my guards are down. I'm not vigilant, okay? I'm not aware. I have no situational awareness of what's going on in this book because I don't know or understand the situation. So there's that. I'm back and I'm finished with the appeal. I feel like we walked in a square just to go in a straight line. Or we went in 3 circles just to go in a straight line. And I don't really know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Like, it seems like a lot, but I feel like we just spent way too much time getting to the destination where the author wanted us to go. However, all the things that I found pointless or was questioning the relevancy to the story had a purpose. There was a lot to dissect here. There was a lot to take in here, but only in like terms of its quantity. There wasn't much substance to what we were taking in, but it was a lot that was happening within the story. And so it felt like it was just like, it felt at times like we were wasting time. So in terms of like this plot coming full circle and making sense, 5 out of 5. My enjoyment level, probably a 3. I don't really know. I probably would rate this book like a 3.5, maybe a 4, but it would be more of an objective 4, not like, oh, I really enjoyed this book 4, more of like, it did what needed to be done, everything made sense, everything came to a full circle, and eventually time that we thought was wasted actually had merit. This is not a book that I would recommend at all to really anyone. There would just be like this small pool of people that have like read and experienced the appeal, but I don't know if I would like tell someone, oh my god, you should read this book. I just don't envision that happening. Now, maybe it could be because I'm an American, and this is a UK book, centered around, like, I guess it was written to appeal really to UK readers. That was the focus, and maybe it does really well. Maybe it did really well in the UK, so much so that it's now an international bestseller. But in terms of, like, this being the pinnacle murder mystery, I highly doubt it. Or this being like a favorite, I highly doubt it, because there wasn't much to get attached to as a reader. I am surprised at how much of the story managed to come to fruition just from email correspondence. I wasn't sure how I felt about that in the beginning, but yeah, it was a time, it was an experience, and it's over. Will I remember it? Yes, because of how unorthodox it was and the way that it was told, but not for any type of like breathtaking or like mind-blowing moments within the story. I don't think that there's anything here to take away from the story, just like there wasn't really anything to be attached to. But yeah, I'm ambiguous on how I feel about this book. I don't recommend it, but people have read it and loved it, so there's that. Next, I'm gonna jump into The Word is Murder. I'm really hoping that like I love that book, especially because we start off with a character planning her own funeral and then dying right after. So hopefully that's like a much more enticing and like gripping experience. 13 chapters into The Word is Murder, and this one's very different. Something that I don't think that I've paid attention to until now is the fact that none of the murder mysteries that I've read have ever been written by American authors, which is interesting. I know that murder mysteries is very popular in the UK market, and it heavily influences a lot of American readership in terms of books and movies and TV shows, and even like things like Knives Out, of course, is also a UK based film. So I guess it just finally was highlighted to me that this new wave or this new reappreciation for Agatha Christie and murder mysteries is something that is influenced by a beloved subgenre in the UK. That's definitely something that hit me while I was reading this story, because it constantly mentions and pays homage to books and stories like those by Agatha Christie, which kind of makes me feel like I should read them, because so many murder mysteries and even just thrillers that include like a mystery murder aspect is constantly trying to rewrite And Then There Were None or Death on the Nile and books like that, where I understand a little bit of the concept, but I've never actually read the book, so I can't say whether their appreciation or, you know, their follow-up story to these books are actually credible or even good or not. The book kicks off with an elderly woman going out to plan her own funeral, and then 6 hours later she's found in her apartment dead after being strangled. And her son is a celebrity, but he has left the UK and he's currently in America filming TV shows and movies. And so we have this detective that's on the case. His name is Daniel, and he seems very intrusive but also closed off, like at the same time, where he has a complete disregard for the personal boundaries of other people, but very staunch in his own boundaries. So I think that makes him an interesting character. And then we have Anthony, who is an author who writes a lot of crime fiction, and he's very known for writing crime fiction. But Daniel approaches him and is telling him that he needs to write this book, and he needs to write it in a way that is true crime. And at first Anthony's like, that's not really my thing. Like, I like being in control of the story. I like creating my murder scenes and the methods and the reasonings behind it, and that switching over into true crime, where I'm just following you around as you investigate, a case that may or may not be solved by you is questionable and not as easy of a transition as one might think. But Daniel proves himself to be a rather convincing character nonetheless. So on the surface, this appears to just be a coincidence and one that is easily reasoned out and solved. But Daniel is hyper focused on the case, and he is deeply convinced that things are not as they seem, and most of the time he's been right so far. So he's digging much below the surface into this crazy coincidence that, you know, she would plan out her funeral, the entire service, all the way down to the plot and the casket and the material that her casket would be made out of. She was very thorough, very detailed, almost as if she knew she was gonna die, but you know, we cannot confirm that as of yet. There's so many easy explanations that you can lay onto this case, but Daniel is on this hunt for the truth, and I am enjoying it. There is something that is stiff, I guess, about the writing and the approach to it, but I don't think that that's the story's fault. I feel like that's just a sentiment I get period when I read books by authors in the UK. I think there's a certain tone that is different from when I read US centered authors. So it's not a negative, it's just that's what I feel about the writing. It's a lot stiffer and it doesn't flow as smoothly. I feel like maybe there's some humor on the page that might be so dry that it's just below my radar to pick up on humor and sarcasm. But again, there's other little intricacies about the story that may be hinting at other things that I just don't have the context for. I feel like there was this past experience that everybody understands the context of that I don't. I feel like, you know, I would not be able to laugh at a joke fully because I don't have that exterior context that everybody else has. But, you know, it's neither here nor there. It is what it is. So far, I like this one. It's not much on the surface. I can't highlight anything that's just so amazing about the book, but in terms of me following the story, I'm enjoying it. I'm having a decent enough time. I don't really care who murdered her or why, but I do enjoy the slow unraveling of different things where it's maybe this is a normal murder case, and then we get one little thing that's outside of what it should be, and then we follow that down, and then we just have this slow okay, now this case is bigger than what anybody really expected, but our characters knew that from the beginning. Our detective knew that from the beginning. We just had another dead body that has a relationship or had a relationship with the woman who died in the beginning of the book. So this feels much more targeted than it did in the beginning. A lot less random, a lot less of a coincidence, and more of maybe she was trying to tell a story or a message prior to her death. Officially done with The Word is Murder, and I didn't have the best level of enjoyment, yet I still enjoyed the book. Mostly because I have a deep appreciation for the way the author chose to tell the story, even if I wasn't the most engaged reader. I think it's super cool that Anthony, the author, wrote himself into a crime fiction novel that is supposed to be true crime. So it's told in first person, but you really have this sense of you're talking to a real person because him and Anthony share so many similar traits, down to the titles of the books that they've written, how many books they've written, their notoriety, and just everything that you think would go into a crime fiction author who has written over 40 or so novels switching into true crime. It felt real. And I mean, of course it is real because Anthony is writing himself as he is into a fictional story. So it just breathed a whole new level of life to what was on page. This is also a great first book into a crime fiction series because the journey, even though we're following a murder, is really about Anthony, the author, realistically, and also in the story, coming to understand how a detective thinks and what it means to actually be researching a murder mystery, and who you eliminate in your process, or why you have eliminated certain individuals, and how easy it is to overlook the actual killer. This is more of a character study and character development for Anthony the writer, which I think is pretty cool. I don't think that we developed enough about the detective in this book, but that's totally fine because there's 4 or 5 books out in the series, so I anticipate that he's going to dive down that road later on. Would I continue with the series? Probably. It's a book that I would get from the library, or if I didn't have really anything to read, I would certainly pick up the next book or continue reading in the series. Because it wouldn't be a priority focus for me, I think it will take me quite a bit of time to get to the next novel in this series unless I just feel the need to pick it up or feel this desire to pick it up. But for right now, like, I enjoyed the story. Ironically though, by comparison, I enjoyed the appeal more than I enjoyed this, even though this was objectively a better written book. I don't know where I stand with these. Like, although I wasn't really on the hunt for a favorite murder mystery, because again, this is like my first time really prioritizing and like focusing on the subgenre, I wanted to like at least one of these books more than I have so far. And it could just be me. Maybe I am taking it all in and I don't know what I like. I don't know what is like exceptional until I see something that's exceptional. So I don't really know what I'm looking for, and I think I'm a bit standoffish when it comes down to like getting connected to these stories because I'm still trying to get my bearings, and that's okay. I hope again that my enjoyment is higher for the Thursday Murder Club, especially because this is supposed to be more humorous than any of the other books that I've read so far. But from the last book and just reading other people like Peter Swanson and constantly having these references to Agatha Christie, it has finally made me want to pick up an Agatha Christie book. Maybe I'll do a vlog where like I read 3 or 4 of her most popular stories, because at some point I can't keep reading all of these books that pay homage to her with no context as to what they're referring to. It's getting to the point where I now feel like, again, I am without the context of understanding this joke or understanding, you know, what the author is alluding to, because I don't have that prior knowledge. That's neither here nor there. Next up is the Thursday Murder Club, and I'll be back. This is my first and final update for the Thursday Murder Club because I am DNFing. I usually save this adjectives for books that I just really have no other way of describing, but this bored me. I was bored reading it. I cared nothing for the POV that we were in, the character, the narration. I just was disinterested. It did not work for me at all, and I see no need for me to like keep pushing through the book. So that one's gonna be an unhaul for me. This vlog has been very like conflicting overall because I know that I set out to figure out if I even like murder mysteries, and the answer is still I don't know. I don't think that is necessarily murder mysteries, like the subgenre, that does it for me, but there could be other things about a murder mystery that I like, such as the author's narration style, the way that they're writing the book, the characters, or maybe even the plot that we're following. But there's nothing about a murder mystery itself that makes me like it. I think that this is a genre where the ball will just kind of always be in the air, and there will be so many more external factors determining if I like the book rather than like the internal factors, if that makes any sense. I don't really know. This vlog may have been a flop, really, because I don't know. I will read from the other 2 authors that I read from earlier, Anthony and I think her name was Janice. I will read from both of those authors again. So technically 2 out of the 3 authors that I tried to read in this vlog worked because I have not put them like on my ban list. I don't know if I would read anything else from Richard Osman. I don't even know if this was like his debut novel because I only know of this series by him. I don't know any other book or series that he may have written, but there's nothing about this book that would be memorable, interesting, or riveting in any way, shape, or form. I will say that this vlog made me want to finally pick up the pinnacle of murder mystery writing, and that is going to be me reading some Agatha Christie books finally. And I don't expect to love them, but I think it will be a great lesson, I guess, in my like objectivity, because I have no outstanding factors that would make me like or dislike the books. And so anytime I can go into an author's work with no preconceived notions, I feel very enticed by that itself, because I'm on the fence and I would love to know where I end up landing. But But I do feel like if I do like Agatha Christie's works, it will be because of her talent and her writing, and not necessarily the murder mystery aspect, not necessarily the genre that she's writing in, but what she's doing within that genre. And overall, I feel like that's my biggest takeaway. Like, it's not the genre itself, it's what you do with it. And so with that being said, the star of this vlog would certainly be the appeal, because of how unorthodox and untraditional the way that the story was told. And I also seen that this author wrote another book, which is supposed to also be like a crime fiction where you're piecing together a bunch of like smaller things that may or may not make up a murder mystery, or may not make up a crime, and you, or either the character, I briefly read the synopsis, but the character, which may be you, is determining whether or not there is enough evidence within the story to take to the police. I am unable to get my hands on this book right now. It's published in the UK, so I cannot get the ebook version. I cannot get the audiobook, and if I tried to mail myself a copy, it would be over a month before it made it to me. So this is a book that I would actually really want to read, because again, it seems like another unorthodox way to tell a crime fiction or murder mystery story. I just am unable to get my hands on it at this time. Hopefully it's published in the US sometime within the next year or so, or maybe I can finally get my hands on a digital copy, because I can't right now. Anyways, thank you guys for making it to the end of this vlog. I'm still not sure where I land with murder mystery, so if you have some based off my, opinions and what I felt about any of these three books, please leave me some recommendations down in the comment sections, because I read 3 fairly popular murder mysteries and I'm still unsure. So guide me, give me some help, because I would still like to know if I like murder mysteries. Thank you guys for watching my video, and I'll see you in the next one.